Well, good afternoon again. It is time for Transportation Talks with David. Hey, I'm glad you joined us today. We're going to kind of continue what we started, I believe, last week on episode one of retention. And I put a couple of things together since then so that you might can see it in with your own eyes instead of just listen to me talk and get just kind of start yawning. I want this to be engaging. I want this to be something that you get some help out of. But let's kind of review real quick. Last week we opened up about who let the elephant in the room, or I guess it's my time to mention the elephant in the room, and he's been in the room for a long time, and it's retention. We're not doing enough. I mean, we don't take retention seriously. It's something that's a buzzword. We talk about it, but at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is put as many drivers in the front door, and we don't really care about them leaving out the back door. And we say we do, but in the end of the day, what are we doing? And I don't mean that to be critical. I just in the places I have been and put processes in place, that's what has happened is that they it's more about being out the door than it is being who's coming in the door. That's just they're both equally important. If we can narrow the flow going out the door, then those coming in the door, we can get better quality. The recruiters can take more pride in doing what they do, providing long term employment and at a good income for drivers and their families. So that's my passion. That's my goal is recruiting great drivers, qualified drivers, but then retaining those drivers. Now I've got some graphics up today. I've got a little PowerPoint I put together just to of things that I've thought about and things that I have been a part of in the recent past, and then some things that have been tracking for a period of time. But let's just title this "It's Retention," okay? And that's what it's all about. It is your heartbeat of your company's culture and attitude and profitability. Listen, your profitability will drop if the attitude and culture in your company is not positive anymore. Retention makes everybody feel like they're contributing to something, and it has to have, as we said last week, teeth in that retention. And that means the teeth is that it is bought in by the CEO, president of the company, the C level suites, all the way down into every bit of every corner of the organization. Everybody is equally important, but the president of the company, the CEO, has to let them know that they are watching this and they're serious about the retention, because once you see the money that's going to be put back into the company or in this retention process, I think you're going to say, "Hey, it's well worth the shot there." So let's move on a little bit and let's just kind of go retention. It's something for everybody, but how do you compute your retention? What's your true cost? I'm not going to go into what's the right way or the wrong way. I'm going to go into the way I recruit retention, or that I compute retention. I look at annual, because annual is where you're spending your money, you're setting your budgets, and I look at the annual number of drivers hired against the average number of trucks available to seat for that year, and we do that at the end of the year, and that gives us a number, a percentage of what your retention is. Now, no matter what frequency you use, we need to know, the question is, what is the cost of that turnover? And industry experts all across the industry say that that cost is 8,000 to 10,000 per driver, all in, not just your advertising, not just your orientation, but all in. That includes the truck sitting, lack of revenue, all of that. So that's very important for you to really take hold of. Is is what they say in the industry themselves. Going to the next step, let's look at an actual case as we examine a carrier with 100 or 1,000 trucks. Now, we can end up doing this proportionately with with any carrier. If you've got 500 trucks to 50, 1,000, the ratio is the same. It's going to be, you're going to follow it the same. Now, obviously, a company with 60 to 80 or 100 trucks, they have a better handle or should have a better handle on their drivers, talking to them more, listening to them. But unfortunately, some of them are still having that problem, and we need to get something there to help them because they typically, those carriers are the most vulnerable when these times turn and the money dries up at times. So we want to everybody to be able to have a good retention program. In this case, the carrier had 150% turnover in the prior year and 154% both years past. So here's the breakdown. 20% of any turnover typically is uncontrollable. Yours might be a little lower, it might be a little higher, but that's the range. Those are random drug test failures, medical people that became medically disqualified, safety issues, accidents, violations, things of that nature. Leaving a net turnover in this particular 1,000 truck company, that turnover was left at 1,300 drivers. Now, what can we do with that 1,300 drivers? Instead of cost, what can retention put back into the bottom line? Here's the biggest thing. The carrier's success depends on a genuine desire to reduce or lower turnover and change attitudes when needed. So that's very important. Your question you should always ask: are we retention compliant? OTR carriers, as we all know, they want that turnover somewhere around 100% or less. Sometimes people will tell you, "Hey, man, we're sitting at 90%," but when you ask the question, well, how many drivers did you hire last year? How many trucks were available? You're going to find out their turnover is a little higher. And it's nothing to be embarrassed by. Let's fix it. Now, as the elephant was in the room, how do we slay turnover? We're not just going to wake up one morning and go, poof, turnover's gone. We want to take it in bite sized bits. How do you eat the elephant? One bite at the time, was the old saying. So we want to take turnover and start lowering it by 15 to 20% annually by keeping your drivers for at least 100 or 90 to 120 days, because you're going to see in a minute that studies have been done that says if we can keep them at that point and engaged, you've got a 65% shot at keeping them through the 12 months. That's important. That's the crucial point where they're getting to know you and you're getting to know them. Now, out of 1,300 drivers, the goal would be 15 to 20%. On the high end, you're looking at 260 drivers. On the low end of the cost of 8,000 a driver, you are looking at an added revenue back into your bottom line of around 2 million, a little bit over $2 million on 1,000 truck company. If you got 500 trucks, you're probably looking around a million. What can you do with that money? I always say that we need retention departments, not someone that says, "Hey, I'm director or VP of retention and recruiting and retention." That's fine, but you need two departments under you. One is your recruiting department because they're doing something entirely different than the retention. And yes, retention does start there with those recruiters, but you need two departments. I think $2 million will more than pay for a retention department. Matter of fact, that is a huge return on your investment. And I call it the ROR, return on retention. What kind of money are you getting back from retention? So that's really important. Now, we've determined, like I said earlier, that if we can keep that driver engaged for 120 days, 90 to 120, we've got a 65% better shot at that driver staying for 12 months. And the key is constant driver engagement. Now, that was surveyed by Transport Topics and Overdrive, not me. There's three reasons drivers typically leave before 90 days. My recruiter was not truthful about pay, job, or home time. Well, probably the most recruiters are truthful. The driver just talks to a lot of companies and they get some confusion there. You can eliminate that if you listen to a podcast I did a few months back on with one of the vendors, with Jackie McManus, where I said put it in writing before they get there. It saves a lot of communication issues. Dispatch sits me too long. They won't communicate or they leave me hanging. And all of that results in the driver not making money. Now, if it's the driver's issue, if it's his problem, if he has an issue with, whatever it is there about not getting out on time or taking longer breaks, then that's the thing where you need to have a coaching and a counseling session with them to show them if you don't do this, then you will not be making money. Your loads won't be on time. You can't pre plan you. But if you have issues with communication out of your fleet managers, dispatchers, we need to make sure they are getting involved in this process. The real reason is the lack of human communication. Better stated, driver engagement. It's a simple process, but it's effective. Recruiters at times do not have the right conversations, or they are just order takers and not retention minded once paid. Now, I didn't say all recruiters. There are companies out there that do a very good job of their recruiters being engaged after the hire. There are other companies that say, hey, forget them, move on. That's up to ops to keep them. I say hogwash, as we say in South Georgia. I say not true. I say retention is all of us. Everybody at every level is involved in retention. There's ways to handle that, and we can coach that in if given the chance. Our fleet manager dispatchers are only interested in getting the freight moved. Absolutely, that's their job. But we get so busy that the only way we're communicating is through text or these in-cab messages that cause the driver to have to stop and look, slow down, or break the law and violate his company policy and risk the DOT. And when we do have a face to face or a verbal conversation, it's usually telling the driver he made a mistake. That's negative communication. We need driver engagement. We need that driver to know that he has our respect, that we know the job's tough. We need that driver to know that we are going to recognize him when he's doing a great job, and that there is rewards there for having safe inspections and for doing his job correctly. That's what drivers want. They want that recognition and that reward to be retained. I call it the 3 R's, and I got that and I borrowed that from um, another person just to give them credit. We're all busy, and this modern technology is great communication, but we've lost that human touch and that interaction. What do you think the most important word in the world is? Anybody want to kind of say bet, David? Anybody want to bet? Your name. That's right. That's the most important word in the world. Well, guys, I want to wrap up and I want to say, hey, listen, the elephant has been in the room. Let's get them out of the room by taking every one bite at the time. I hope this has helped you. If you want more information, if you want some help, I am available. I will be glad to help you. I will do it as a contract. And even now, I am looking at if I can be an employee, but I can help you. That's what we need, because when this tide turns, and I know it's about to start turning, um, probably quarter 4, and it's going to really turn quarter 1 and 2. Why do I say that? Because I've talked to people, and the capacity is slowly getting back in the right position. People, enough companies are now getting out of this industry due to jumping in and not really doing business plans when it was so when the getting was good, and now it's getting close. It's very close, and when that rights itself, you're going to see this industry take off again like it always does. We've been through this many a time. If you're new in the industry, never fret. It will swing the other way. But until then, we need to build a strong retention program, because when you start fighting for drivers as the shortage comes back because that surplus is gone now, when you start having to, you would like to know your company has something in place that will help keep some of those drivers there so that they can grow, so you can still recruit even more. Until next time, this has been the second episode in The elephant in the room and retention. It's retention. That's the name of the game. And if you need some help, if I can't help you, I know people that have great retention ideas and programs already there that I can steer you to. The point is, let's work together. But until then, David Edge, I'll put my number up on the screen that you can look at and call. You can visit my LinkedIn and click contact. It'll have my info there, emails, everything you need to know. Hey, be safe, stay cool, and have a great summer. Until the next time, this has been Transportation Talk with David. Hey, have a great day.